I'm Tracy Eire, and today I'm just going to show you how to make a book cheaply. Wait, it's not a book, it's a book cover cheaply and beautifully with PowerPoint. There's a search box up above here that isn't recorded. It's not in the recording, but you see me drop down the tip for it. So you see this that I've chosen custom slide size before. But the point here is I want to choose the size of my book here. So for me, that's usually 6 by 9 inches. I'm going to click OK. Ensure fit. OK. Okay, there's my normal cover size. So that's what I'm going with. Okay. So here I'm just adding a couple of new slides just to show you where the new slide button is. And they have placeholders on them for you to put PowerPoint stuff into, but you can click on the slide and then Control A for everything, like to select all, and then just delete it with the delete button. Gone. So here's your blank. Basically, it's the size of your cover. So, and I just want to show you the new slide button here over here. Um, now I'm lost. What am I doing? Stay on the home tab. The home tab is good. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to get on with actually making the cover. So now I'm going to pick a picture, and these pictures are coming from the British Library. Christian Francis talks about this. They released a lot of graphics for free that are free to use for everybody. And so I just went out and got this one, which is called Solitude. Now I'm thinking about like what is the first thing I want to do? And that's when Designer comes in. So this is Designer in PowerPoint. And the way Designer works is it just exists to give people options when you can scroll it. It's not letting me scroll. What is going on with you, Designer? Why are you being okay, I'll just scroll it with my finger then. Um, and so you can see some different options, and you can also get more ideas at the bottom. That's what that orange button is. And I'm just like, I kind of like the top one best for my purposes, what I'm going to be trying to do. So I'm going to go ahead, I think, and go with that. Oops, I jumped off the page, so I'll delete that other slide. Let's just make it small enough so I can see the whole thing. That's kind of a helpful tip. Okay. So now this is the PowerPoint picture format tab, and you're going to spend most of your time in here. For me, I'm just going to correct the color a little bit here. So you can just take a look at the options as I go. You can make it like this. The paper is changing from kind of antique ivory just down to white paper. So I kind of like that. I'm going to keep that. There's some other options, but the transparency is what you use most often, or I use most often. Okay. We can change the picture. We can also reset the picture back to what it was, but I think I'm good with this. However, I don't like the name down at the bottom. So probably the first thing that I would do is get a snipping tool. I'm going to do it right now and select a piece of the cover around the area where the problem is, which is a little word, and then paste that back in and cover that up. In PowerPoint, okay, in PowerPoint, there's a thing called grouping, which can now just meld that change in. You see all the handles are selected and I group it. Now it's just one picture. So that essentially is gone, and you certainly won't be noticing it from here on out, I hope. Duplicate the photo. This is something I do often, actually, and that is I'm going to choose a light blue, which is kind of still too dark, and I'm going to set the transparency for the entire picture so that it looks a paler kind of blue. And it's actually transparent to the same copy of the picture underneath it. And just That's very annoying. Go away. I'm noticing there's a white line at the bottom there. So I may group these together. That's by selecting all. So that's again, Control A. And I'm just going to drag them into position and make sure everything is okay before I go on. All right. Not too bad. You can see me here going to pick designer again, and you'll notice that designer doesn't work. And if this happens for you, it's usually because you're now working with a grouped object and it doesn't see that as a PNG or a JPG or something it can actually do anything about. So in order to correct that, I often go ahead and save the graphic out and then bring it back in as like a JPG or a PNG. So here I'm going to go ahead and drop it over here into this. I have another show, so that's great. Just PowerPoint show that's just kind of waiting, and I'm going to run designer again. Here we go. And it's still happening. So now I'm figuring out that okay, I need to save it as a picture. So here I go, saving it out as a picture, and I'm going to. So now that the JPG is inserted, you can see designer actually kicks in. And like I said, its job is to show you what your options are. You see that orange button at the bottom will give you extra options, but already see the one I want to use. So this is the designer I want to use to make a book cover for this. And I just think it looks really cute. So I'm going to change the size a bit so I can see. PowerPoint has a hard time holding on to sizes. I'm just scanning to see if there's anything else I want to do here. No, I think I'm good. So next thing to do is start adding in the names and titles, all that sort of thing. So I usually start with the author name. So that's what I'm trying to do here. I've just grabbed a text field and I'm dropped it on the page. Now I'm going to pick a font that I'm pretty sure everybody knows and maybe half of everybody hates, but I love it. Just happen to love this font. Now I'm typing in author name and I want to center it. So there's a button at the top. All right, we're centered. This is all on the home tab, by the way. Now I'm copying and pasting and I'm going to just drag this down below. I'm realizing I forgot to actually make the fields the width of the picture of the cover. It just helps if you do that because you don't have to mess around with it as much. Here we go. So now I know they're centered. Sometimes PowerPoint will give you a line that shows the object or field is centered. Sometimes it won't. So I'm changing the font of this one because I plan to make this the book name. I'm moving it around a little bit. Oh, that's terrible. Yeah, that won't work in Amazon. It will go right outside of the KDP like line, so we don't want that. Not that this is necessarily for like for a soft cover or a paperback book. This could be for an ebook, but just the same, I like to stay inside those cut lines. So you can see here that I'm changing the spacing between the book, the letters of the book. So there's an actual button at the top for the font section that will let you do that. Now, I'm not too fancy about how the double O's came out here, but what can you do? We're just going to leave it for now. I've centered this and that I'm going to make this smaller font size because I mean to make this the book subtitle. All right, too high. It looks a jumble right now. It'll get better as we go. So I'm going to pull it down a little bit. And if you, oh, the spelling is not nice. With a font that's all caps, it's hard to tell if you've capitalized something and it shouldn't be capitalized. But okay, so here's how it looks right now, which is pretty nasty. So what are we going to do? Well, first of all, I don't mean to zoom in, but it does have issues with zooming. So let's zoom back out so we can see the whole cover. All right, still zooming, stop it. So this thing does zoom sometimes inappropriately when you don't want it to. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and position this just to take a look at it so that the author name is at the top. Now I already know this is not going to work because I can see the top of the moon's going to be intersecting with the author name, but I just want to show you a couple things. First of all, there's a nice clean area for the book name, and I'm just going to move that. You can hit, sorry. You can hit Shift and select multiple fields, or you can just move them one by one. And you can see that nice clean bottom part. It looks really good, but you can't even see the author name at this point. So I'm like, I'm gonna color it white. You can actually, whoops, I said color it white. And I make it bold as well. You can do that with Control B. You don't have to click the bold icon or the little button over there. Okay, so now I'm going to do something that I do very commonly. It's not going to work in this case because of the top of the moon being here, but I'm going to use this box and I'm going to make a transparent kind of layer here for the author name to sit on top of. Good to note that these are layers, so sometimes you have to drag the author name off and put the box layer below it. When you make a box like this, you want to go ahead and format the shape. If I ever get to it here, format shape, yes. That's two things you can do here by default, line and fill. You want to make sure there's no line because that's the bounding line of the box. You don't want to be seeing that on your cover. And you're going to go into the fill, and I usually use a gradient fill, and there's a reason why. The gradient fill is controlled by stops. You can see the white stop here makes the white section at the top, and then the blue stops, the cluster here, make the blue. So I can drag them right off of this line and make them vanish. I can also actually swap sides so that I can have the darker part on the top, blue, and then the white on the bottom. In this case, I don't actually want this blue or this white, so I'm just going to go ahead, use the eyedropper, and pick a color here. So I'm just going to pick the newsprint color that is behind it. And with this stop, this stop, I just want this to be transparent. So I'm just going to turn up the transparency. And now you can actually see that it's made it much lighter. I can change the shape of this. I can make it wider. I want it to be top down, so then that's why I chose that direction that I did. You can see that you can make it softer by pulling it out longer, this box. So there are a lot of options. The thing is I want to cut the author name, paste it back down to raise the layer, and drop it on top. And it has more contrast when you do this. But even moving this over, you can tell it doesn't work because of the top part of that crescent moon. So that's not going to work. I'm bringing it back down here. Keep trying it. It's not going to work. Stop it. Stop doing that. I just want to make it larger. Okay. Now here I had a weird drag handle problem where things just would not work. It was very strange. I've just decided to just give it a little name. I'm going to fix the spacing to loose and then to normal because loose is not doing it. Normal. Now I'm going to give it a subtitle. Okay. Man, I'm picky. Holy smoke. Okay. So as good as that looks, now I've got to make room for the author name down at the bottom where the title is. So first, I'm making an author, Goddess Green, because why not? Then I think I need to make this smaller. I definitely need to drag it down here. I'm going to pop it there for now, and I'm just going to start shifting things around, holding shift to select multiple things, move everything down, and try and make this work in the space at the bottom. I just think it's the best option here, and that's why I selected it to be choosing a new color for Goddess Green's name. And I'm making the font smaller. But I selected this white bottom part so that you gotta actually have room to do all this. So this is still useful. You can flip it upside down with the circle tool that you see holding. You don't have to do anything, just click the thing and it will give you that rotate tool. So I'm making it smaller. So now I'm planning to bring this down to the bottom. Ah, there you go. It's kind of nice, but kind of too dark. And it's certainly on the top layer above all the fonts. So now I'm going to have to move and cut all of this font, move that down. Oops, let's move it over a tiny bit and drop the font back on top of it. Ah, okay. So colors must change. So here, I'm going to look for more colors and actually darken that a little. Clicking OK. Can't see that very well. Oh, and I can't select the rectangle because these are all too long. So something's got to change here so I can actually select the rectangle on which they're sitting. So I'm going to make Goddess Green, shorter field, and let's select it and see if I can still center it. One of those times where I get the centering lines. That's nice. So I'm going to take that stop for gradients and I'm going to change the transparency of it, lowering it a lot. Check it out. Zooming in on me. All right. I cannot stand this Grammarly tool just constantly getting in my way. It's so annoying. They're going to be on my machine, like I'm testing it right now. The least you can do is not get in the way when I'm doing something. Now I'm going to group these, which makes them again into one field. That's nice. I can now move them as one. So I move them over. Just recentering everything. I just want to figure out where I want Goddess's name to be, where I want the title and subtitle to be relative to that. All right, still not right, so I'm just going to add a line to it. Move that down. So be careful when you're doing this with lines. It's easy to make them not be straight, and then it's like, nightmare. I just undo what I did because it's not a straight line after I mess with it a bit. And I'm going to go ahead and thicken the line and probably change the color. All right, that looks better. So good that I can't fuss with it even more. All right, so this is how the cover looks so far. But I'm thinking, what if you wanted to add a tagline or something like that? And that's easy. You want to make a text field, bring the text, type the text in, change the font. So I'm still using decorative, even though it's probably a bit too big. Just move the field around. Maybe you won't have that annoying Grammarly. Oh God, that's annoying. Yeah, I don't know how long that's going to last on my machine because it just gets in the way constantly. All right, so this is not part of PowerPoint. This is Grammarly. Right, now I've made it the color I want it to be. I'm just going to move it around. You can move it here or there, whatever you like. I hate this thing. It looks terrible. I'm just like, change it. So I'm going to make it a tagline from the book and center it. It looks weird still. I think it's just a balance of the field. So let's see, what am I going to do with that? It's better. Okay, so there is your tagline. Oh, I don't like it there. I don't like it there. This is probably the only place that I like it. Thank you, Grammarly, for getting right in the way of everything, as usual. Um, make it smaller and then compress the field a little bit so that it looks good. Probably needs to be moved over a little, but I keep grabbing the wrong thing. Like I said, it's very, very picky about the text fields. This is where it helps to be able to zoom right in and just select it. You have to get that crossbar and then you can move it. This is one of the very annoying things about PowerPoint. But now here's how your cover looks so far. It's not too bad. Still feel like it's missing some oomph. I'm going to try something. Bear with me while I do this with this lovely circle I've just drawn. Boop, put it in place. And as usual, I'm going to format. Oh, actually, let's just go back and do it the proper way. I'm going to format the shape. I'm going to take the line off. And I'm going to give it a gradient fill. Okay, so this time I want it to be radial. And I want it to look like yeah. I want it to concentrate the color on the inside. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and set the color to that. Then, what do I want to do with this? Do I want to fuss with this? I want to change this. I think I'll just crank down the transparency. Playing with it at this point, and now I'm just going to reduce transparency of the first stop. I'm not sure about this. So I'm going to change the brightness. That look. Yeah, I've clicked on the wrong thing, so it's blue, but it actually looks good, so I'm going to leave it. Still fiddling with the transparency. Hello, relax. And the brightness, because anything that you can do once, you can do twice. Because overdoing it, you know how it is. Anyway, I actually think it looks good now. And this is the cover that I have so far. A couple of little changes. I want to start the beginning of this line with this little, and then I want to start the ending part of this line with the same shape. And arrow, the shape there. Huh. Huh. Okay. Technically, that is the cover. This can be removed if you don't like it. I think it looks really cute. I actually like it a lot. And I think I'm going to leave it like this. Maybe there's one thing I can change here. Let's just, it's around the subtitle. There's something about the subtitle is bugging me, and I'm just trying to figure out what that is. Let's just see. I think I'm going to select it and change its spacing to loose. Okay, I don't hate it now. So that is, that stupid Grammarly tool is right in the way. Like, I love parts of this. I love the little halo of light around her face. I could I could do without the tag phrase, but it certainly fills up a little bit of that negative space that's on the cover because of the crescent. And I gotta get rid of that stupid Grammarly thing. It's just annoying as heck. Okay, the spacing is also bothering me, so for the last tweaks I might do on here, tweak, 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 let's go. Anyway, this is a group, so I can move it down as a group. So that's what I'm adjusting right now. Okay, so now that I've got it kind of looking like I want it to, I'm probably going to show you the other things that I made via this method with this picture that I bought. And here's the first one. It's the first cover I made. Second cover. I really like this cover right here. It's probably one of my favorites. This is the cover that matches the one we're making right now. And here is a more kind of old-fashioned type cover. It's a little bit more eerie because of the coloration. I also had this in green at one point. It looked it looked eerie in green, certainly kind of less of a friendly color. So let's just see if I can do that again. I'm going to poke around a little bit and go to its color. Okay, so there are the presets. See if I can find something green. Okay, that's great. I can change its temperature. Oh, that certainly looks really like nuclear. A little maybe too much. Uh, oh yeah. It just looks like some kind of nuclear reactor from the past. Some kind of weird machine. Shape of an hourglass. So just watching the saturation changes, making sure it's not overpowering. But now it just looks like some kind of weird nuclear experiment in a old timey-wimey hourglass. So gas lampy goodness of the supernatural kind, I guess. So yeah, I mean, this is where the idea originally came from, to do these in PowerPoint. I know how to do a lot of manipulations in PowerPoint, and I think they just came out looking really nice. And here is the one we have just made, and that's the finished cover.